They? Where can you find them? And do they make good pets? All good questions. And here with all the answers is our good friend Jungle Bob Smith from the International Fauna Society and the Serpentarium located in Riverhead. Well, thanks for coming, Bob. Certainly do appreciate it. Just want to let the folks know that in addition to bringing these wonderful animals with you, you do a lot of education stuff here on Long Island, and you've got a wonderful magazine, which the folks should probably called Fauna, which is just gorgeous pictures.
Thank you much.
And I want to mention that as well. These are amazing animals. I mean, the colors are just gorgeous. What is a monitor lizard as compared to, let's say, a gecko or just a regular lizard?
Good. Part of our educational experience with people is so little information about reptiles, so we kind of break it down for them that all lizards are reptiles. Monitors are types of lizards, the most famous of which is the Komodo dragon, which you've heard a lot of lore about. The
big nasty
Komodo,
guy.
Big nasty guy, very toxic bite. Really of legend, it's probably the origin of the fire-breathing dragon, because a bite from a Komodo dragon was most certainly a fatal bite way back when. So we now have, through captive breeding, opportunities to get monitor lizards that are close cousins of theirs, although they don't get anywhere near that size, most of them. And that's what we have here today.
Now, your daughter's holding one. What kind is that?
This is my daughter Mallory, and she has got one of our favorites. This is called the Blackheaded monitor. This is a full-grown animal. This guy's probably 5 or 6 years old by now. So very, very simple animal to keep in terms of size of the terrarium. He is a desert creature. He comes from Australia. And like most monitor lizards, he kind of eats everything. He's an omnivore. They have a tendency to lean towards meat. So anything from a mouse to dog food to table scraps, anything you put in front of most of the lizards you'll see today will be consumed by them. And it's a lot of fun to watch.
Now, he seems pretty tame and calm. I mean, with your daughter holding him here, of course, now he's going to jump around as we mentioned it. Is this a good pet for kids?
This one I would recommend, and there are a number like this. Of course, time permitting, I didn't get to bring everything that we could have. Again, the Blackheaded monitor, a little on the expensive side. It's kind of exotic because we have him out at the Serpentarium in Riverhead on display for people, but you're seeing them now closer to the $100 mark, which is kind of a magic number. This one probably sells more for in the $300 to $400 range in the pet trade. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit unusual, but the size of it is why I brought it along, because there's many, many monitor lizards today that you can purchase through the pet trade. Captive bred, which is a mandatory thing for me. I don't like to take animals out of the wild. These are Australian creatures. Maybe his great-great-great-grandfather came out of Australia, but for many, many generations, this animal was born in the United States. So the temperament is fantastic on them. They stay small, and as you can see, we're not getting bitten, are we, Mal?
Well, thank you, Mallory. You're so brave in coming out here to come and show us that wonderful lizard. What kind of lizard do I have here?
Yeah,
this
now we're
getting gorgeous. The color. If the folks can see this green, almost aqua green color, isn't it?
Pretty amazing. Called the Emerald Tree Monitor, and a good lead into a lot of the monitor species that we're going to see today. Our friend here, the blackhead, is more of a terrestrial lizard. He lives under rocks. He hides inside of tree branches and very desert environment. This guy is more of a rainforest creature. He gets these beautiful colors to help him camouflage. And he's very wiry. If you can get a good look at his face, it's almost bird-like. He's very bird-like in his motions. He darts really quick. If you put him down, he's going to be in the next studio pretty quick. He's very, very fast. He uses that quickness to catch things in the trees. He's a bird eater. He's a nest raider. He likes to eat eggs in the wild, but he'll eat anything from insects to any kind of pet store food that you put in front of him in captivity.
And the price for something like this?
He's more of an expensive one. It's getting specialty, but as more and more people buy them and more people captive breed them, the price just through supply and demand goes down, down, down. So we're seeing these animals where maybe a year ago it was a couple of $1,000s for a specimen like this. Now it's well under that $1,000 mark and heading down.
So if I was going to be a beginner in this working with monitors, I would get something like what Mallory's holding rather than one of the more expensive ones.
Yeah, again, there are a number of other species closer related. The family here, the genus name inside the reptile world, if I can educate people a little bit about that, is called the Varanus. They're all Varanus lizards. Varanus komodoensis is the big guy. He's the Komodo dragon. But this is the Emerald Tree Monitor. You see he gets that aqua color. That comes from being in captivity. He's no longer in the rainforest where his coloration really is a beautiful, bright emerald green. He'll lose that emerald green because of what he eats in captivity and because of lack of UVB light and sunshine. So he turns more of a bluish color, which people love. Because
What type of, you see how long his tail is, if I can get that, as it goes on forever. This is quite a long animal. What kind of a facility would we need to, contain one of these fellows?
they like it, again, you have to imagine their environment. Back to the blackhead, he likes rocks, sand. You can decorate it beautifully with different colored sands, and he likes to hide in those rocky crevices. The emerald tree monitor, being a canopy dweller, he's up in the rainforest. He likes it planted. He likes it tall. So he likes a nice arboreal cage that goes higher than it does longer. And he'll hide amongst the branches. He'll regulate his thermoregulate himself from top to bottom. They don't really like it really hot, which is good on the tree monitor side. So you don't have a big electric bill. You don't have to have a lot of lights on top of the cage. There's always fire hazards with heavy lights in these reptiles. So this is a good one to keep in a more humid environment, in a arboreal cage that's more rainforest.
So you really couldn't keep these together. You'd have to have them totally separate
Wouldn't keep them
environments.
together, and sooner or later one gets bigger than the other, and that's the end of the little guy. Because they are ferocious predators. They'll eat everything, and the real attraction a lot of times is people like to watch them eat, because they eat kind of like a dinosaur. They grab it and they turn their head up and they consume it very quickly, and with a couple of quick bites it's over.
Lunch. Up next, monitors that are not exactly for the novice owner, plus which monitor is the longest in the world. Find out when the Family Pet continues on
Popular belief, but the croc monitor is one that fits the bill. He's a very ferocious beast. He gets about 15 feet long. That's mostly tail. Like the emerald tree monitor we just saw, he's a tree dweller. So you'll see the length here as I'm feeding him something on the floor of the Serpentarium in Riverhead. He's long and lean and quick. He's got the biggest teeth in the lizard kingdom, the longest tail. Not much is known about him in the wild because they live so far up in the canopy. It's all really folklore. The local people in New Guinea, where he comes from, know a little bit more about him. They kind of worship these animals as tree crocodiles.
So when you talk about a crocodile, you think of one that's slithering on the water. This guy actually lives up in the branches.
Lives up in the branches, and few people have seen them in the wild because they're way up there and they're so quick and ferocious, people stay away from them.
Smart
like some of the
move.
guys I've got here.
Yeah,
kind of
now,
on the same
obviously this
front.
guy's not too happy with this. He's kind of almost hissing like a cat.
Yeah, well, that's his first method of saying back up. I don't like exactly where I am. I just happen to know the nature of both these beasts, and they're big bluffers.
Okay.
So we do, I'm not going to say this is an animal for a novice. This is when you're into the trade a little bit more and you're interested in reptile husbandry. I have here the Argus monitor, Varanus panoptis, which is a beast in the wild, very, very quick, very ferocious predator. He actually is a bipedal animal. Once in a while we can get him to do it where he'll stand up on his back legs and look over the grass. Yeah, you want to be on TV, huh? Let out that little hiss and tell people he's there. Again, if you can capture his face, extremely bird-like creature. He's just taking in air
And blowing it out.
and he's blowing it out his nose just to tell people that he's here and that he's a little bit upset.
With a forked tongue like a snake.
Forked tongue. All the Varanus monitor lizards all have that forked tongue. It really is the stuff of Japanese B movies. Many times they took these animals and put little spines on their back and made them Godzillas, So we just happen to know that Argus, which is what we call the Argus monitor, he lives in the window at Riverhead these days. He's out in the front on Main Street. He's a big bluffer. I mean, he's never bitten anybody. He's never even opened his mouth towards me. When you put food in front of him, that's a different story. He changes his disposition quickly.
What's the business on his back there?
Well, as most of the animals I have here today, Argus, unfortunately, was kept by someone who didn't exactly know what they were getting into, probably had a very small cage, and then Argus got big, and he got these scars on his back from rubbing up against the light bulbs, rubbing up against the screen mesh. His tail was eliminated, unfortunately. It could have been a cage mate. It could have been just whacking against something hard, broke his tail off. So he was a rescue, and he was a lot of work, a lot of vet bills, to make him happy again.
So these guys obviously don't really make good pets. I mean, you really got to know what you're doing.
You got to know what you're doing, but it's something that once you know what you're doing, you have the proper size enclosures. They're fascinating animals because they have a great personality, and it's that whole dinosaur thing.
Right.
They appeal to people that like reptiles, dinosaurs, and because of that face, they're very bird-like. That's why I like them.
Now, who's the one that Dylan has here?
Dylan's got a Blackthroat monitor. Most of the animals we've seen today are from Australia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, but the Varanus species go all the way to Africa, and this is where the Blackthroat monitor comes in. Blackthroats are one of the largest lizards out there. They'll get 7 feet long.
He's got kind of bumps and knobs on him.
Yeah, he's got a knobby skin. They live in very arid environments. If you can see, look at the claws on this guy. I mean, this is not something you want to fox with as far as getting scratched, but another bird-like face, another forked tongue, but other than squirming around, not wanting to be held in front of the camera, very, very tame, very docile. The more you handle them, the more you hand feed them, the more docile they become.
Now, if he was to lick my hand and it was tasty to him, he'd try to grab you.
He would try to grab you, yeah, and he is a meat eater, and that's when accidents do happen. But usually it's when there's the scent of something on your hand. So we're prolific hand washers out in Riverhead. We're always getting the Purell dispenser and washing our hands, because when you touch food and then go to touch the animal, if I put chicken in my hands and go like that and I get bitten, it's my fault, not the animals.
Do these guys have really, like, you know, big teeth like alligators, or are we talking about little knobby teeth like maybe a corn snake?
Razor sharp, cutting teeth, right to the bone, extremely large jawbone that can really clamp down and really do some damage. I got 7 stitches about 6 months ago from another type of monitor lizard that wasn't so friendly, that was caught in the wild and didn't want to be in captivity. And he did a number on me for sure. But that's part and parcel with the trade. If you're going to keep reptiles, you're occasionally going to have to experience one of those things. It's just if you pick the right species, treat them right, get something that's captive born, it'll make a really nice pet for you. This is really pushing it.
In the wild, do these guys have any defense mechanisms other than their strength and their speed?
They hide. That's what most reptiles do. Black-throated monitors are, again, African species. They live in the desert, and there's a misconception that they like it 100-degree hot all the time. What they do really is during the very hot weather is they burrow, and look at those claws again. This guy can dig a really big hole, and they try to go to a spot underneath the ground that's a little bit cooler and moist, and keeps their skin moisturized. Otherwise, they'll just dry out.
Do they shed like snakes do?
No, all lizards shed in patches, and this is a very natural thing. It's not something we're ashamed about. He's shedding right now. There's little pieces of him coming off. That's naturally the way it's done. Snakes, the shed comes off in one giant piece, and that's when...
If you could show the folks his ear holes, I think that's kind of unusual. These guys do have nice big ears right over there. You can see it right by my finger there.
That's it, yeah.
And it's kind of big, so obviously they have pretty good sensory situations going on.
Yes, and these monitors, particularly the Blackthroat, has got an unusual placement of his nostril. If you can see where his eye is, and the white hole to the front is where he's breathing from. It's a very unusual placement for a lizard and gives it that dinosaur appearance. Ears are actually the difference between lizards and snakes. Lack of ears makes a snake, lack of eyelids make a snake. So not lack of arms and legs, because again, back out in Riverhead, we have legless lizards that have closable eyelids, that have ears, but they have no arms and legs, but they're truly lizards, not snakes.
How often do you have to feed these guys?
Boy, they eat every day if we wanted to give it to them. I mean, I forget how old exactly she is now, maybe 3. They'll eat almost every day, but we try to do it 2-3 times a week. We try to do that when the public's around, on the weekends in particular, because watching them eat really is something. They're gulpers again. We always feed them and mention the lawyer in Jurassic Park when he gets eaten and kind of thrown down. That's how monitor lizards consume their food. They grab it, they thrash it, they put their head up, and they just chuck it down.
So it's a little bit like alligators do it then.
A little like alligators, only even more ferocious, because those claws are disemboweling claws.
What's the life expectancy of most of these guys?
Monitor lizards in captivity, easily 15, 20 years. And again, a big girl like this could get 6, 7 feet. The male certainly, I have a mate of hers out in Riverhead who's considerably larger that we couldn't even deal with to bring out here.
So when you get involved, you better be involved, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
We have to take a last break. There are more monitors on the way, so don't change that channel. You're watching The Family Pet on New Obligation. We're having all kinds of fun with monster pets here. And we've got Tyler helping us out a little bit with Jungle Bob. Tell us what we got here. This is, wow, big.
Yeah. Well, we got Tyler and Joe and Joe.
Okay.
Tyler's the guy with the hat. Little Joe is a baby Asian water monitor.
A baby of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Little Joe, Big Joe.
And how old is little Joe?
Little Joe's probably 2 years old or so. Another rescue just dropped off recently at our place. But you see the temperament of these things, very, very, very docile creatures. This is the closest relative to a Komodo dragon. Asian water monitors are the second most heavy-bodied lizard out there. They don't get anywhere near as long as the croc monitor we saw, or nearly as long as the Komodo. But they do get 7-8 feet. This guy's about 6+.
Now, this guy, though, I would imagine could do some nasty damage with his tail.
Well, you might find out any second now if he doesn't want to stay in this table too much longer. Joe, you got to calm down a little bit.
Give him a kiss
You're
on the
on
lips
TV.
there.
Joe is pretty famous. He's been on the cover of many newspaper articles. He walks around the Serpentarium most of the day. We take him out of his sizable cage where he loves the water. He's got a giant pool there, and he walks around inside the Serpentarium and occasionally goes out the front door and right down Main Street. Which is really a traffic stopper. It's just incredible how many people think Joe is a crocodile and not a lizard, because people just can't understand this, that the camera's that way. Would you please turn around? He doesn't understand that this is a lizard species and not a crocodile or an alligator. He's fantastic in that, look at the temperament on this creature. I mean, if he wanted to bite me, he'd inflict some serious pain, but he's absolutely docile. He's never bitten anybody. If you put food in front of him, he changes his disposition pretty quickly. But he's sensing with that tongue all the time, that fantastic mechanism that lizards and snakes have. That huge tongue flicks out over and over again to find out what exactly he's looking for, what he's looking at, and he only bites when there's food involved.
But he doesn't have, I mean, even though he's docile, you wouldn't recommend this as a pet for...
No, no. I brought little Joe to show people, I mean, right now, monitor lizards were just outlawed in New York State just in this year. Lizards this big, for the obvious reason. But for many, many years, pet stores sold them, and I think a couple might still be doing so, that they stay small if you keep them in a small cage, which is one of the biggest lies in the pet trade. They say that about pythons all the time. That's fish, I guess, where if you keep them in a small enclosure, they'll stay small. Not these guys. They get big, just as big as they want to get. The more they eat, the bigger they get. And what a sin. You see, Joe is a rescue. He's probably 20 years old, we estimate. And all this white mark here on his sides, on both sides, were scar tissues from either a cage mate scratching him or a light bulb burns. So he got too big for his cage and was pressing up against the light, is what we figure. Reptiles don't have a good sense of nerve endings in their skin. You could pinch them and you could put a cigarette out on them. They wouldn't even feel it, but they do burn. They do lose their skin. So Joe was really beaten up.
And he does have an amazing temperament. I mean, if you consider, you know, what an alligator would do on this table compared to what he's doing.
Yeah, or even
this is really wonderful.
Even a live Asian water monitor. I mean, they come all throughout Indonesia, and they're carrion eaters. They carry disease in their mouth like Komodos do. They're pretty vicious in the wild. But Joe was born in captivity, clearly, has been around people all the time, and in Riverhead, he's the mayor.
Wow, that's wonderful. Remember, if you want more information on today's show, log on to our website at news12.com and click on to the numbers and links. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week on The Family Pet. I'd like to thank Jungle Bob and his family for coming along, and of course, you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye, Joe.